Most people think that space revolution has already happened. They look at reusable rockets, thousands of satellites, private space stations, and missions returning to the moon, and assume the hardest problem has already been solved. But what if getting to space was never the real challenge? What if the biggest bottleneck begins only after you arrive? But then SpaceX changed the equation. Suddenly, launch costs began collapsing, more satellites entered orbit than ever before, entire industries emerged around space based communications, Earth observation, navigation, and national security. A new reality was forming, and hidden inside that reality was a massive gap. The industry had figured out how to get to space, it still hadn't figured out how to move around in space. The person who recognized this wasn't a newcomer, it was one of the individuals most responsible for making modern spaceflight possible in the first place. Tom Mueller isn't a household name, but inside the aerospace world, he is legendary. As one of the earliest employees at SpaceX and the architect behind the propulsion systems that powered Falcon rockets and Dragon spacecraft, Mueller spent decades helping solve the problem of reaching orbit. Most people would have retired after helping transform an entire industry. Instead, he looked at the next bottleneck. And in 2021, he founded Impulse Space. The company was built around a simple but deeply contrarian belief. The future of space will not be defined by who launches payloads, it will be defined by who moves them. That insight sounds obvious today, but most of the industry was still focused on launch vehicles, bigger rockets, and larger payload capacities. Impulse focused on what happens after separation, after the rocket is gone, after the mission officially begins. Their goal is to build the transportation layer of space itself. Think of rockets as airports. Impulse wants to build airlines, highways, the logistics, and eventually the entire movement infrastructure that connects everything together. The execution is surprisingly elegant. First, our launch vehicle places a payload into orbit. Instead of forcing that payload to carry massive amounts of fuel and propulsion hardware, Impulse attaches one of its own spacecraft. Then the transfer vehicle takes over. It performs orbital maneuvers, changes trajectories, raises altitudes, and delivers payloads exactly where they need to go. Finally, it can continue operating, servicing additional missions, deploying satellites, or supporting future operations. The company's first vehicle, Mira, was designed to provide what could be described as last mile delivery for space. But Mira is only the beginning. Impulse is developing larger systems like Helios, capable of moving much heavier payloads into higher energy orbits and eventually supporting missions reaching far beyond Earth. What makes this powerful isn't any single spacecraft, it's the platform. Every successful mission teaches the company how to move efficiently, operate faster, and support increasingly complex operations. Over time, transportation itself becomes the product, and transportation networks tend to become extremely valuable. Railroads, shipping lanes, airports, fiber optic cables. History repeatedly shows that whoever controls the infrastructure often controls the future built on top of it. Impulse is attempting to build infrastructure for a domain that barely exists today but could become one of the largest economic environments humanity has ever created. And they are doing it with a team uniquely suited for the challenge. Many startups hire talented engineers. Impulse assemble veterans who have already participated in some of the most ambitious aerospace projects ever attempted. The company emphasizes deep vertical integration, designing, building, and testing much of its technology internally to accelerate development and reliability. This creates a powerful feedback loop: design, build, test, fly, learn, repeat. Every cycle makes them stronger, every mission expands capability, Every success pushes the industry one step closer to treating space mobility as a normal service rather than an extraordinary event. And that's where the long term vision becomes interesting. Because if launch costs continue falling, space activity won't grow linearly, it could explode. Thousands of satellites may become tens of thousands, orbital manufacturing could emerge, satellite servicing could become routine, private space station may become common, lunar infrastructure could begin taking shape. None of those futures work efficiently without transportation. Someone must move the cargo, someone must connect the destinations, someone must create the logistics layer. Impulse is positioning itself to become that layer. Not another spacecraft company, another launch company, but the connective tissue between everything else. The company often describes its mission as unlocking the true space age, and in many ways, that's exactly what it's attempting to do because civilizations aren't built by reaching new frontiers, they are built by creating systems that make those frontiers useful. The most important companies of the next 20 years may not be the ones building the destinations, they may be the ones building the roads. And that's the bet Impulse Space is making. That the future of humanity beyond Earth won't be determined by who gets there first, but by who makes movement so easy that everyone else can follow. Whether that vision succeeds remain uncertain, but if humanity truly expands beyond Earth, it could become an economy. But if humanity truly expands beyond Earth, if orbit becomes an economy, if the moon becomes industrialized, and if space transforms from exploration to civilization, then the companies that matter most may not be the ones that launched the revolution. They may be the ones that made it possible to keep moving.